other print disability which makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org.
Hello, this is Ken Kuminski, and for the next hour, I'll be reading from current issues of the Lockport Union-Sun Journal on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. First article, A Legacy of Achievement. Lockport High School celebrates class of 2026 at 179th commencement by Danielle Beater, Lewiston. More than 300 graduates crossed the stage Saturday afternoon during Lockport High School's 179th commencement ceremony at Art Park, celebrating a class distinguished by academic excellence, career readiness, civic engagement, and service. Leading the class of 2026 were valedictorian Madeline Doyle and salutatorian Owen Berger. Drew Walker served as class president. In her remarks, Principal Dawn Wilkie reflected on the perseverance and accomplishments of the graduating class, recognizing not only their academic success, but also the many ways they made an impact in classrooms, on athletic fields, on stages, and throughout the community. The class of 2026 has embraced every opportunity to learn, lead, and grow, Wilkie said. I am incredibly proud of all they have accomplished, both academically and through their many achievements beyond the classroom. They leave Lockport High School prepared to make meaningful contributions wherever life takes them. The class of 2026 earned nearly $157,000 in individual scholarships, while more than 37% of graduates achieved honor graduate status by maintaining a cumulative average of 90% or higher throughout all 4 years of high school. Students also contributed and continued to take advantage of expanding college and career opportunities available at Lockport High School. Through partnerships with 2 BOCES centers and 5 on-campus career academies, including 3 programs certified by New York State, 29% of graduates earned career and technical education CTE certificates along with their diplomas. The school's commitment to college readiness was equally evident. A total of 148 students earned approximately 2,000 college credits through dual enrollment opportunities, while 136 students successfully completed 410 advanced placement courses. The class of 2026 also set a new standard for civic engagement. A remarkable 246 graduates, representing 67% of the class, earned New York State's Seal of Civic Readiness, a dramatic increase from 37 students the previous year. The distinction recognizes students who have demonstrated the knowledge, skills, and commitment necessary to become informed and engaged citizens. Lockport High School also celebrated another historic milestone as 12 graduates became the first students in school history to earn the New York State Seal of Biliteracy, recognizing proficiency in 2 or more languages and celebrating the value of multilingualism in today's global society. Attendance was another point of pride for the graduating class. Jolena Charfella achieved perfect attendance throughout her senior year, while salutatorian Owen Berger accomplished the extraordinary feat of maintaining perfect attendance throughout all 4 years of high school. Excellence extended beyond the classroom as well. 95% of Lockport High School's 33 varsity athletic teams earned Scholar Athlete recognition this year, helping the school once again earn designation from the New York State Public High School Athletic Association as a school of excellence. Today was a beautiful celebration, said Dr. Mathis Calvin III, Superintendent of Lockport Schools. The class of 2026 leaves behind a legacy of achievement and moves forward ready to lead, serve, and succeed. Next article, DEC awaiting report on sale of Vandemark site. Lockport facility purchased by Valiant Energy Management of Houston earlier this month by Heidi Truschel-Light. State Department of Environmental Conservation officials said Friday the agency hadn't been informed that Valiant Energy Management of Houston had purchased Vandemark Chemical Incorporated on June 19th. John J. Salka III, Public Information Officer for the DEC, said state regulations require a new owner to notify the agency and submit an application for permit transfer within 30 days of sale. It is the facility's responsibility to notify DEC of any ownership changes, Salka said Friday. To date, DEC has not been notified of any changes in ownership or facility name. Salka said DEC staff met with representatives of Vandemark Chemical in April to discuss the company's plans regarding a potential closure or transfer of operations. At the time, the company was concurrently planning for a late 2026 facility shutdown and trying to finalize a possible deal to sell the facility. DEC advised the company what actions would be required by DEC regulations for either scenario, he said. Should Vandemark's owners proceed with a facility shutdown, Salka said DEC will work with the company to ensure any hazardous materials are properly contained, cleaned up, and disposed of throughout the closing process. Any asbestos abatement would be overseen by the New York State Department of Labor, he said. Vandemark Chemical produces phosgene and other chemical derivatives. The American Chemistry Council's website states that phosgene is an ingredient used to make flexible foam, rigid foam insulation, thermoplastic polyurethane for medical devices and footwear, coatings, adhesives, sealants, pharmaceuticals, and agricultural chemicals. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, phosgene is a toxic gas or liquid that can cause damage to the skin, eyes, nose, throat, and lungs. When liquid phosgene is released, it quickly turns into a gas that stays close to the ground and spreads quickly. Last month, former Vandemark employee Thomas Spina filed a lawsuit in Niagara County Supreme Court related to his exposure to liquid phosgene while working at Vandemark on May 13, 2025. WIVB-TV reported that after a 32-hour delay in medical care, Spina survived the exposure with treatment provided by Mercy Hospital of Buffalo. OSHA fined Vandemark $22,500 last year for 2 violations, WIVB said, including failing to address the consequences of engineering control failures that can result in catastrophic incidents. And Three Little Hens Baking Company planning a new space. The business owners working on site in Youngstown for August 1st opening, by Robert Creenan. Youngstown will soon get a new bakery, set up by a local favorite of the farmers market scene. Owners of the Three Little Hens Baking Company are working to open a brick and mortar location by August 1st. It won't be just a local bakery, but a place for special events and where people can learn how to make their own food. I have never wanted a traditional retail bakery, and I still don't, owner Rachel Jolbert, who also owns and manages the Lewiston Artisan Farmers Market, said. Jolbert had been baking professionally for the past 18 years, even teaching courses at the Niagara Falls Culinary Institute for 7 years, as well as at Lewiston Porter Schools for the past 3 years in their community education department. The name Three Little Hens comes from her 3 daughters, Ivy, Penelope, and Mauve. The bakery was started out of her home in 2020 when Mauve was only 6 weeks old. Gilbert started participating in the Lewiston Farmers Market as a part-time vendor in 2020, eventually acquiring the whole market in 2023. In the past 3 seasons, since she took it over, the market has grown to 30 to 40 weekly vendors with attendance around 1,500 customers during the regular Saturday schedule from June to October. As she was getting more customers and orders for her baked goods, she started looking at building a kitchen annex on her own property. She thought about that option for 2 years before she and her husband decided that was not the best option, so she turned to getting a commercial space. In January, she saw that 120 Lockport Street, previously home to Happy Tales of Niagara, was available. I was able to view the property, and immediately I started seeing my vision come to life in the space, Gilbert said. She and her husband closed on the building in mid-April, doing most of the cosmetic work inside the 1,500 square foot building themselves. Three Little Hens would have a commercial kitchen for the baked goods and a kitchen space for Gilbert and other professionals to teach baking, cooking, and preserving classes. The kitchen would hold classes of 12 to 14 people, private gatherings of 10 to 12 people, and would be reserved for other events. Gilbert said she has also become involved with tea party style catering and wants to expand that further. I have grown up in Lewiston and Youngstown my entire life, and I am very excited to have a permanent place in the community for my growing business, she said. Gilbert added that she still plans on being part of the Lewiston Farmers Market and as well as other pop-up events and festivals in the area. Next, Niagara Hospice gearing up for 13th annual Grand Fondo. Riders sought for August 1st's fundraiser. Niagara Hospice is looking forward to the 13th annual Hospice Grand Fondo bike ride taking place on August 1st. Grand Fondo originates in Italy, where long-distance bike rides are followed by large celebrations. The event starts and ends at the Niagara Hospice campus, located at 4675 Sunset Drive, Lockport. The Hospice Grand Fondo offers riders the choice of a 15, 33, or 62-mile route. Each route features a number of rest stops stocked with refreshments. Following the ride, participants return to the Niagara Hospice campus for the post-race celebration featuring food, drinks, and live music by MJ and The Way. Those who do not participate in the ride may purchase a separate ticket to attend the after party. Many individuals ride in memory of a loved one. Proceeds from the event support the specialized care and services provided by the nonprofit organization. Anyone interested in registering for the Hospice Grand Fondo can visit hospicegrandfondo.com or call 716-280-0766 for more information. And as a reminder, you are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Lockport Union-Sun Journal on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 14 minutes past the hour. And now here's a couple historical articles that seem interesting. Titled Just Beneath the Surface, Tracing the History and Legends of Niagara's Mineral Springs by Jim Bowles. I became interested in springs while researching the book They Did No Harm, Alternative Medicine in Niagara Falls, New York. It explores the alternative medicine available during the era when Niagara Falls was a successful, healthy spa town roughly from the 1830s to the 1930s. The abundant spring water was regarded as a cure and a healing agent. That is where my recent involvement began. As a child, I drank from springs in Lockport on Hawley Street Hill, Garden Street, and Glenwood Avenue, and the water did taste good. As I uncovered each spring, the stories poured out. Through these springs, we discover a unique history of the Niagara frontier. The water endures unless it is altered by humans. Usually, the springs remain to tell their story. In the 1800s, there was much interest in the minerals and mineral water of the recently settled Niagara frontier. Here are a few examples as described in government publications. Sulphurous. At Lockport, on the Tonawanda Creek, miles from the village, these springs would have a large amount of sulfur. Cholly Beat, miles north of Lewiston, on the farm of Captain Leonard and several others in the vicinity, these springs would have a large amount of iron salts. Brine, several along the course of 18 Mile Creek between Lockport and Lake Ontario. These springs would have a large amount of salt. Inflammable gas. At Gasport, in the town of Royalton, 6.5 miles from Lockport, from the Mineralogy of New York by Lewis Beck, 1842. Another reference from the Department of the Interior, United States Geological Survey. New York State says, Lockport Mineral Spring, 1 mile north of Lockport, Niagara County, saline improved, but used by the residents of Lockport. There is a further analysis of this spring listed the tested content of sodium chloride at 111.42 grams per gallon, which is very high. Sulphur Spring, north part of Pendleton Township. These two government documents list known springs and in some cases the water's mineral content or use. They were examining the water's commercial applications because at that early and primitive time in science, medicine, and healing, the minerals were thought to help with health problems, and some may have. I still use these publications because they are useful for tracking down old springs and for giving us a perspective on their importance in earlier times. A look at the mineral content shows that local springs contained ingredients with healing potential. Bicarbonate of soda, used for stomach issues, digestion, and coughs. Lithium, used for mood disorders. Salt, used for wounds and mouth sores. And other minerals that may have been helpful. The springs were also used to supplement well and city water when those sources were deemed contaminated, and they were often commercialized, with bottled water sold as a healthy alternative to other water sources. Local breweries advertised their use of local spring water to demonstrate the purity of their beer. In earlier accounts of the Niagara frontier, the springs along the major routes are mentioned as both geographic references and as rest areas. There is a pattern of discovery by early travelers and settlers, and their reports mentioned Native Americans using the springs. Many of the Native American footpaths that became our present roads led to springs or had springs along the way, providing water for travelers and animals. Improvements to the springs. Often the first improvement to a spring was an open basin to hold drinking water. Hands, cups, and buckets were used to draw water. This left the water vulnerable to bacterial and disease contamination from animal and human contact. Then a major change reduced the contaminants entering the water. The basin was covered to protect it from external contamination, and water flowed through a pipe. Visitors could then use the spring with reduced risk. How are springs viewed by the public? The articles and presentations on springs attract interested audiences. People want to know about the springs they remember from their childhood. They quietly want to know if it is still there, flowing, and they always remark about the good taste. It's the best water I've ever had. The magic of springs. I received several phone calls from an elderly man who had read one of my articles about springs and insisted on speaking with me. He said he had been drinking from the local springs for more than 70 years. He claimed to have the stamina of a 40-year-old and as proof said I should just ask the ladies. His final statement to me was, "The government is trying to take away our free water." I talked to a couple who had moved to live across the road from a mineral spring in an attempt to help with her medical problems, and they claimed that drinking the water daily had cured her. In a small hamlet on Lake Ontario, I was invited by a longtime resident to look at a pond and the spring that kept it full. The spring water had now returned to the pond. The pipe was gone, and there was no external water. This spring on the bank of the pond had once been the center of the neighborhood, like a town well. It had been gone for many years, but some remembered it. I visited the pond on an early summer day. There were several yard sales, so people were out. Those who recalled the mineral water claimed there were reported medical cures for cancer and other serious illnesses. It was famous as a hangover cure. People came from miles away to clear their heads. Even the newcomers knew about the former spring and the pond. Now that the spring water is in the pond has some of this magic. Local lore holds that the pond can predict the future weather on Lake Ontario. As goes the pond, so goes the lake. Although it is some distance from the lake, residents believe the pond is connected to it underground. The pond never dries up. It is always full. The last story holds that a liquor-running boat sank into the deep pond and still lies there, full of Prohibition-era rum. The spring-fed pond was once connected to the lake by a small stream. The springs in Niagara County have a long history. The water from many of them was used for healing in facilities and sold as health drinks with medical claims. Here's a note on visiting the springs. Many of the springs described are on private property, and you may need permission. There are often posted signs. Water quality varies and can change quickly. The water needs to be tested before use. And here's another article celebrating the United States semi-quincentennial celebration about James Lafayette, personal servant to a spy. Written by Michael McGow, a longtime educator in Pennsylvania. Very little is documented about the early life of James, a person born into slavery. Accounts vary widely as to the year he was born, with most agreeing that he was born between 748 and 1750. Some later accounts of his life note that he was known as James Armistead, referencing the surname of his enslaver. Such assertions are largely undocumented. The enslaver of James was John Armistead, who lived in New Kent County, Virginia. James became the personal servant of William Armistead, John's son. Although not a common practice of the time, James was taught to read and write, possibly with William Armistead. That uncommon skill set for an enslaved person played significantly into the service James provided his country in 1781. At the outbreak of fighting in the Revolutionary War, the opportunity for release from slavery, known then as manumission, was offered by Lord Dunmore, the Royal Governor of Virginia. That offer was made available to enslaved people who would serve in the British Army. James did not seek his freedom in that manner. The Marquis de Lafayette, a French aristocrat and military officer, volunteered to join the Continental Army. He quickly became a trusted member of George Washington's staff and a supporter of the American-French alliance. Later, he became a leader in the French Revolution. In honor of the example set by Washington, the Continental Army, and the American people, Lafayette sent Washington the key to the Bastille, when it fell on July 14, 1789, during the French Revolution. During the later years of the American Revolution, prospects for success often looked bleak for the Continental Army. The war in Virginia during the spring of 1781 was one of those times. William Armistead, who oversaw military supplies for Virginia, was in Richmond that spring. James, his personal servant, was with him. James wanted to join the Continental Army, and Armistead agreed. He became a courier for Lafayette. As Lafayette got to know James, an enslaved person who could read and write, Lafayette recognized a greater potential. Lafayette suggested that James spy on the British to acquire much-needed intelligence. Based on the offer of freedom from the royal governor, James had a legitimate reason to approach the British camps so he could move about without attracting much attention. He first joined the staff of General Benedict Arnold, who had left the Continental Army as a traitor and joined the British Army. Arnold used James as a guide while commanding troops around Portsmouth, Virginia. In time, James became a courier and servant for General Charles Cornwallis, who was in command of the British forces in the colonies. With the offer of personal freedom for his service, Cornwallis asked James to become a spy for him. In that capacity, James was in a unique position to provide valuable intelligence to the Americans while providing a stream of disinformation to Cornwallis and his army. Although not a combatant for either army, had he been found out by the British, his fate would all but certainly have been execution. The last major engagement of the Revolutionary War was at Yorktown, Virginia, in 1781. The formal end of the Revolutionary War came with the Treaty of Paris in 1783. The success of the Continental forces under Washington and Lafayette and the subsequent surrender of Cornwallis was due in no small measure to the intelligence that James gathered, interpreted, and provided. Many enslaved people who served in the Continental Army, particularly those from Rhode Island, New York, and Virginia, were granted freedom from their state legislatures for their service. James's petition for freedom was initially denied because he had been a spy and not a soldier. With the aid of Armistead, a member of the Virginia House of Delegates, and a personal testimonial from Marquis de Lafayette, James was granted legislative emancipation in 1787. As a free person, James took the surname Lafayette. Various sources report that James Lafayette was married and had children, but no documentable records have been found. There are records indicating that he owned land in New Kent County and that he had enslaved people who worked on his farm. In 1997, a memorial marker was placed at the New Kent County Courthouse, recognizing his service to his country. That marker indicates that he died on August 9, 1830, in Baltimore, Maryland. In paying tribute to the part played by enslaved people, such as James Lafayette, during the American Revolution, Harriet Beecher Stowe, author of Uncle Tom's Cabin, said, "It is not for their own land they fought, not even for a land which had adopted them, but for a land which had enslaved them and whose laws, even in freedom, oftener opposed than protected. Bravery under such circumstances had a peculiar beauty and merit." While searching for his freedom, James Lafayette became a founder of the American dream. For his service, he was granted a pension by the Virginia legislature. In 1824, the Marquis de Lafayette was in the United States on a tour. During his visit to Richmond, Lafayette noticed James Lafayette in the crowd that greeted the French hero. Although only briefly, they were reunited more than 40 years after they had served together in the American Revolution. As a reminder, you are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Lockport Union-Sun Journal on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is about 30 minutes past the hour. The next article from the sports page The Greater Niagara Newspaper's GNN Player of the Year. Never Stop Working. Star Point's Shannon Zugelder reflects on what it took to become four-time state place winner by Max O'Neill. Pendleton. There are not very many kids who go from the Greater Niagara region to the SEC or even to the NCAA Division I level. Sure, there are a few, but not a ton of kids. That list is gaining one more person in August by adding Star Point's Shannon Zugelder, who is going to the University of Mississippi in the fall. Now the senior has been rewarded by being named the 2026 Greater Niagara Newspaper's Girls Track and Field Runner of the Year for the second year in a row, after winning the ECIC Championships, the Section 6 Class B title, and the state qualifiers in the 3,000-meter run and the 2,000-meter steeplechase, while winning the Class B championship in the 1,500-meter run. As a result, she made the state championships, finishing third in the 3,000 with a time of 4 minutes 52.24 seconds, and fourth in the steeplechase with a career best time of 5 minutes 56 seconds. It is the second consecutive season Zugelder has placed at the state meet, finishing fourth in the steeplechase and third in the 3,000 in 2025. This season, Zugelder has set 4 new personal records in the 1,500, 3,000, 2-mile run, and the 2,000 steeplechase. She has finished her career owning 4 individual and 2 relay indoor track records, while coming up just short in her pursuit of the 3,000 and steeplechase outdoor records by 1 second. She has also had to prioritize figuring out how to take care of her body and getting the proper rest and recovery she needs when she is competing in multiple events in one weekend. It's very important, Zugelder said. I definitely had to take value in that, especially with running 3 distance events. That was definitely something I had to prioritize, and honestly, this season has taught me a lot about having to make sure I'm doing the right amount of miles, making sure I'm valuing recovery at home, making sure I am getting a proper amount of sleep, and everything else. Her performances in the steeplechase and the 3,000 run sent her to the New Balance Outdoor Nationals, where she finished 8th and 52nd. Her trip to Philadelphia made it 5 years in a row that she has been to either Nike, Adidas, or New Balance's national meets. Before this season, her best finish at any of the national meets was a 4th place finish in the 2-mile run of the 2023 New Balance Outdoor Nationals with a time of 11:05.19. Throughout her career, she has grown tremendously in the mental side of the sport. It has helped her even during races when she reminds herself of difficult workouts that she has gone through and reminds herself that if she can get through that, she can get through the races. A lot of success in distance running comes not just from putting in the work at practice every day, which she is phenomenal at, but also just doing the little things outside of practice too, Star Point head coach Mackenzie Lowe said. So making sure she is sleeping enough, having good nutrition, rolling out, stretching, all the little things that are going to help her recover better and come back stronger each day. She's always thinking about those little things. When Zugelder thinks about what she is most proud of during her career, one of the first things that comes to mind is her 8th place finish at the New Balance Outdoor National Meet, which was the best finish in her career at the steeplechase, beating her previous best finish of 18th. Now that her high school career is over, Zugelder is heading to continue her career at the NCAA Division I level. Zugelder is committed to the University of Mississippi, where she will be running cross-country, indoor and outdoor track and field. While the rise in quality will be evident from the moment she steps on campus at the SEC school, her routines will change, but the way she goes about them will not. She will continue to have to work hard and figure out a way to have success as quickly as possible. I guess high school I'm doing all three, cross country, indoor, and outdoor track and field anyway, so I guess kind of just be a continuation of that. But it'll be up to the next level, Zugelder said. I'm going to have to train more, train to the best of my ability, and to try to stay up with a lot of those people in the conference. Next, Scoops of Summer. Fresh fruit, experimentation make goodies a sweet spot in Olcott by Heidi Truschel Light. At Olcott's Goodies at the beach, Paul Hardigan whips up local fruit and dairy products into high-quality frozen treats that make people scream for more. Many of us can relate to Hardigan's obsession with ice cream, waffle cones, luscious berries, and constructing the perfect sundae. In his 3-year journey operating Goodies at 5985 East Main Street, Hardigan has done deep dives into making ice cream, sorbet, gelato, and popsicles. Now his shop is open Friday through Sunday from noon to 9 p.m. The founder of Take Form in Medina, Hardigan retired from that business but said he was too young to give up working. I didn't originally start out with ice cream in mind, he said. I bought the Ferris wheel before I bought the ice cream shop. I wanted to bring something fun to Olcott. Hardigan went to ice cream school, attending training provided by the manufacturers of the food processing equipment. He came away with some recipes and a hunger for making the best tasting product. Thursday, he said, he made 56 gallons of ice cream and will sometimes go through 200 gallons in a busy weekend. I use no artificial ingredients, he said. I use real Madagascar vanilla extract. I follow the local fruits as they go along. Hardigan said this year's strawberry ice cream has been excellent and he's still getting berries to make it. Our best seller is Oreo, he said, speaking of ice cream flavors. I do a really good butter pecan and maple walnut that the seniors like. The kids gravitate toward mint chocolate chip or mango for the bright colors. I'm going to do a key lime pie. I do an Amish apple fritter, red velvet cake, and I did carrot cake ice cream. That was a good one, too. Asked about the flavors he's most proud of, and Hardigan said he can't pick a favorite among his children. There's a chocolate silk that I like that is a blend of 3 chocolates and Nutella, he said. I like my pistachio gelato, Hardigan said. He searched the internet for a source of flavorful ground pistachios and ships in bricks of the nut butter from Texas. What defines the type of frozen dessert and its quality, Hardigan explained, is the cream content and controlling the trapped air. He said sorbet has no dairy ingredients, while gelato has 6% cream. Ice cream has 16% cream or higher. Hardigan said soft serve can't be sold as ice cream because it has less than 10% cream. The speed at which the dessert ingredients are whipped by the machine during the freezing process also influences quality, Hardigan said. I compare myself to Haagen-Dazs, he said. I don't put as much air in it. I think some of my flavors compete really well with Haagen-Dazs. They're the top of the line. With kids in mind, Goodies scoops are sold in a cup with a homemade waffle wafer on top. With the little kids, the ice cream melts all over the place before they finish, even in a kiddie cone. And I like my waffles better than most cones. I put vanilla and cinnamon in the mix to make waffles. People seem to like it. It would be hard to make the number of waffle cones I would go through. When there's a crying baby, one of our procedures is to give them one of those little cookies. After recently introducing milkshakes, other experiments are underway at Goodies for future menu items. I'm suffering through the product development of hot fudge sundaes. I literally research what fudge you want. I burnt a can of fudge. I wasn't really getting the right consistency. It was premium stuff. I just need to make more mistakes faster. I'm also doing a lot with popsicles or palettas. It's a South American popsicle, and they put more fruit in it. It's a whole other learning curve. If the public can ride out the wait, more Goodies are around the corner. Next, developer presses council on Bewley rezoning. Patstone waiting on council to schedule a vote to move project forward by Heidi Trushell Light. Representatives of Patstone Development and the Greater Lockport Development Corporation, GLDC, took to the microphone Wednesday to urge the Common Council to schedule a vote on rezoning the Bewley's Buildings parking lot to allow a long-planned construction project to proceed. Joshua Frass, developer of real estate development for Patstone Development Corporation, discussed the timeline of steps the developer has taken toward obtaining approval for its project to renovate the Bewley building into 100 affordable apartments. Frass questioned why, after receiving approval from the city's planning board to rezone the building's parking lot on June 1st, the matter hasn't appeared on a city council agenda for final approval. Mayor John Lombardi III, who had participated in the business portion of the regularly scheduled council meeting, excused himself immediately before the general public comment period began. Catherine Fogel, 4th Ward Alderman, was absent for the entire meeting. Frass said Emily Stoddard, city clerk, told him that agenda items needed to go through David Blackley, the city's corporation counsel. We have reached out to him multiple times, and we have not heard a response, and there have been 2 meetings since that time. One that we're standing in right now, Frost said. We would like to know when we can expect to hear from the council and to be placed on the agenda. We have done extensive communications with every one of you. We met with you on April 29th. We have done everything that we are able to do. We want an answer to when we can be placed on the agenda and be heard for this issue, because the project needs to be rezoned, not just for our project. In order to build a fire code compliant stairwell without altering the Bewley building's historic character, Patstone would need to construct the stairwell on the wall facing their parking lot. To allow the stairwell, Patstone seeks to change the parking lot zoning from light industrial to mixed use, which would match the Bewley building's zoning. To obtain the zoning change, Patstone needed to present its project to the Niagara County Planning Board. The board determined that the project would have no negative countywide impacts. The city's planning board voted in favor of the change on June 1st, moving it forward for a common council vote. In an interview following the meeting, Blackley said that he writes the resolutions that come before the council for a vote. He said he had no idea when the Bewley building's rezoning would be added to a council meeting agenda. Margaret Lupo, former 5th Ward Alderman, addressed the council as a member of the GLDC's board of directors about taking action on the rezoning. I encourage the council to work with Patstone Development. They would like to see the Bewley property and parking lot be joined as one under the zoning code, she said. This is a private building and a private sale. We need to combine those 2 pieces of property. Even if this project doesn't work and your magical hotel owner arrives, you're going to have to combine the properties so that whoever buys that building can use the parking lot at the same time. And if you keep kicking the can down the road, you're discouraging other people from coming to Lockport and investing millions of dollars because you look like you won't work with them. There are too many empty buildings already, Lupo said. I brought forward a vacant building registry, and that needs to be worked on, and it needs to happen. There's not enough apartments. You're elected by the people to do your job. Kevin McDonough, treasurer of the GLDC, said, as someone who served on the Comprehensive Plan Committee, I don't know how it got past us that lot could ever have been zoned light industrial to begin with. Sooner or later, somebody's going to have to combine the parcels to make a project work. On Thursday, Lupo said she is not aware of any actual hotel development inquiries in the city. She said residents have commented on social media that a hotel could be a possibility for the Bewley building. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Lockport Union-Sun Journal on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is now 45 minutes past the hour. Next, why focusing on student subgroups matters for schools. A commentary by Mathis Calvin III. Many people are surprised to learn that schools are not evaluated solely on overall student performance. The New York State Education Department reviews school performance comprehensively, examining not only how the student population performs as a whole, but also how specific groups of students are performing. These groups, often referred to as subgroups, include students from different racial and ethnic backgrounds, students with disabilities, English language learners, economically disadvantaged students, and other populations. NYSED, New York State Education Department, reviews data by gender and other demographic factors to ensure schools are serving all students effectively. When certain student groups consistently perform below state expectations, schools can be identified for improvement. Two classifications that often emerge from this process are targeted support and improvement, TSI, and additional targeted support and improvement, ATSI. In simple terms, these designations mean that one or more student groups within a school are struggling and require additional attention and support. This is the third article in a series explaining how the Lockport City School District has successfully removed 4 of the 6 schools that were once identified by New York State for improvement. In previous articles, I discussed the state's accountability system and some of the strategies our district used to improve student outcomes. In this article, I would like to focus on one of the most important lessons we learned during this journey. Improving outcomes for all students requires us to pay close attention to the performance of specific groups of students and ensure that every child has access to the support they need to succeed. Several years ago, some of our schools were identified because data revealed that certain student groups were not achieving at the levels we expected or believed they were capable of achieving. While these findings were difficult to confront, they also provided us with an opportunity to take a closer look at our practices and ask important questions. Were all students receiving the support they needed? Were our instructional strategies reaching every learner? Were there barriers preventing some students from fully accessing educational opportunities? Most importantly, what changes could we make to improve outcomes for students who are not experiencing the same levels of success as their peers? These questions became the foundation of our improvement efforts. Research consistently shows that schools that closely monitor subgroup performances and respond to identified needs are more likely to improve student achievement for all students. When educators examine data carefully, identify achievement gaps, and implement targeted interventions, they can often uncover opportunities that may otherwise remain hidden. This work is not about labeling students or lowering expectations. It is about ensuring that every student has access to the resources, instruction, and support necessary to reach high standards. As we dug deeper into our data over multiple years, we identified areas where our systems, practices, and supports needed strengthening. We found opportunities to improve instructional practices, expand intervention services, increase student engagement, strengthen family partnerships, and provide additional professional development for staff. Perhaps most importantly, this process challenged us to think differently about our work. Rather than focusing only on overall school performance, we learned to ask deeper questions about who was succeeding, who was struggling, and why. That shift in thinking has had a lasting impact on our district and continues to influence how we make decisions today. The work required more than simply identifying concerns. Schools designated for improvement must actively participate in New York State's continuous improvement process. This includes completing a comprehensive needs assessment and review of various pieces of student data, which was conducted with educational experts and school stakeholders to identify root causes of performance challenges. Schools must then develop and implement a School Comprehensive Education Plan, SCEP, which outlines evidence-based strategies and interventions designed to address identified needs. Finally, schools must continuously monitor student performance data and track progress towards specific improvement goals established by the state. This process requires significant commitment from teachers, administrators, support staff, students, families, and community partners. Improvement does not happen overnight. It requires sustained effort, honest reflection, and a willingness to continuously adjust practices based on evidence and results. The encouraging news is that this work is making a difference. Today, 4 of the 6 Lockport schools that were once identified for improvement have successfully exited state-targeted school improvement accountability status. While there is still work to be done, these successes demonstrate what is possible when educators remain focused on student needs and commit themselves to continuous improvement. More importantly, the lessons we have learned throughout this process will continue to benefit students for years to come. We have developed stronger systems for analyzing data, identifying students' needs, and monitoring progress, and responding with targeted support. These practices are now embedded in how we operate as a district. We remain committed to ensuring that every student, regardless of background or circumstance, has the opportunity to achieve at high levels. While we are proud of the progress we have made, our work is not finished. 2 schools remain on the state's improvement list, and we continue to apply the same disciplined approach that has proven successful elsewhere in the district. By focusing on student needs, examining data thoughtfully, implementing evidence-based strategies, and working together as a community, I am confident that we will continue moving forward. Our students deserve nothing less, and I believe strongly that together we can achieve this goal. And now, from the opinion page, written by B.B. Singer, called Revolt of the Adult Kids. They're often in their 20s, 30s, even 40s, but a puerile bunch with little more to offer than loathing of the current president, even when he does laudable things, such as standing up to a murderous Iranian regime. Have you putative grown-ups been applauding those monsters? Or another bad apple, Maduro, who stacked up his opposition like pieces of firewood in horrid, cockroach-infested cells and brutally tortured them too? How about Tren de Aragua, gang members shot at, and rightfully so, in Portland, or pro-Hamas protesters screaming away outside Jewish houses of worship? Do you support those completely disrupting the city of Minneapolis a little while ago? Or Mondami hamstringing the use of law enforcement to neutralize dangerous maniacs in New York? What exactly are you for? Not too darned much, so it often seems, because spoiled? That's one reason for all this, but not all of it. Given that the new spoiledness versus older forms is intertwined with a virtual reality world wrought by initially laudable computers and or smartphones, comb social media, in certain unanticipated but deleterious ways, this is a technical revolution like no other before. I worry about what such a world signifies not only for our future, but really our fragile present, because many of these prolix, aggrieved loudmouths are just not grown-ups, except age-wise. Types like Sanders or Schiff, who blindly support and use them too, should know better, given that they themselves at least resemble adults in the room. This won't change anytime soon. Partly, it also stems from the heritage of education, which has downgraded the great leaps forward of capitalist ingenuity. Of course, these puerile screamers take and take. They wear cheap, mass produced clothing of more than decent quality, they eat well, and basically accept all the capitalist goodies legated to them, but with little sense of obvious gratitude or of how fragile civilization and comparative prosperity can be, with history as a guide on all that. Too many applaud socialism and yet have learned zilch from Animal Farm or Solzhenitsyn's work, i.e., from the failures of the Soviet Union, then Communist China, Cuba, and more recently, Chavez's and Maduro's dictatorships in Venezuela. They want to grab onto something palpable, but have little depth or historicity on such matters. And yes, they are performative, badly wanting to be important and to get attention any way possible, going after ICE agents being only one of them, and with no evident sense even of the near American past in that regard, i.e., how one Joe Biden let in millions of unvetted, some obvious criminals, and made all this mayhem possible. They don't blame the author of it all here, only the administration trying to clean things up, making America not only great, but safer again. Is that such a bad thing? Only if you live in protected surroundings, which these adult kids by and large have. I still think, to regain an earlier thread, that the cesspool, the sewer of helter-skelter internet culture plays a key role here, and maybe even the main one. A great innovation for sure, yet it may well be killing the country, and again, not just its future, but its embattled present. We all check it out, but sometimes I also have some nostalgia for treks to their library and ganders at, say, the Encyclopedia Americana, when in some ways less was indeed more. Yes, when Ward Cleaver was around, and Perry Mason and Lucien Desi and the rest, when those in their late 30s or 40s generally looked the part, versus these perpetual Peter Pans, including types chasing ICE agents with whistles, sirens, bottles of liquid, or cars. But thankfully, and by welcome contrast, there are so many young people, even in their late teens or early 20s, who are working hard and well in supermarkets and pharmacies, in factories and farms, in the trades or the military, or simply volunteering, and you really have to applaud them. Some show such aplomb and maturity beyond their years that it staggers you. Would that they were more central in today's news? You've been listening to a reading of articles and features from current issues of the Lockport Union-Sun Journal. We read from the Lockport Union-Sun Journal every Saturday at 5 p.m. Your reader has been Ken Kominski. Thank you for listening.
Coming up next in the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have the Jamestown Post-Journal. At 7 o'clock, we got the Niagara Falls Review, and at 8 o'clock, we have the Off-Duty from the Wall Street Journal. Stay with us for these readings and more. You're listening to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Radio readers broadcast daily readings 24 hours a day of newspapers, magazines, and books to area people who are blind or have a print disability who are provided reading radios. Our broadcast signal is provided at no charge by WNED. Radio reading broadcasts throughout the city of Buffalo, western New York, and southern Ontario's Niagara Peninsula. For more information on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, call us at 716-821-5555. following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability, which